Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's lesson. As I say, today's lesson is about apartheid. We are starting with South African history now, and we are starting with the crisis of apartheid and the black consciousness. Now, to set the base, to set the foundation. Now, apartheid is more or less exactly the same as the segregation laws in the USA, where black South African citizens were segregated from white South African citizens at the time by President P.W. Botha. All right. Now, the reason they call it the struggle of apartheid is at the time many black South African citizens was hopeless, and they had a feeling of in-empowerment. In essence, it means they were just accepting what was coming their way. All right. That's why they call it the struggle of apartheid. So, Steve Biko was the first guy that started an ideology. Remember, we said an ideology is different from a political solution. An ideology is to liberate the people. Now, Steve Biko decided he is going to step up to renew the struggle and the fight against apartheid. And he started with his Black Consciousness movement. Now, consciousness means to be aware. Now, the ideology of Steve Biko is he wanted to make black South African citizens aware again of the injustice that is busy being implemented on them. All right. So the way he wanted to do it is he wanted to conscientize their minds. Now, if you conscientize something, it means you are changing a mindset. All right. So to be conscious is to be aware. Steve Biko wanted to create awareness in black South African citizens by conscientizing their minds. Conscientizing by changing their mindsets. So he wanted black South Africans exactly to do what Malcolm X wanted the African Americans to do, is to get a sense of pride, to get the feeling of hope and liberation. Meaning, just don't to sit back and accepting what's coming your way. To change your mindset into a renewed feeling of pride, self-esteem, and liberation. Take action yourself in order to improve your own circumstances. As in contradiction to just sit and wait. All right. Now, the way Steve Biko did it is by starting with the education sector. Now, Steve Biko was a university student at the time. All right. Now, there was what we call ethnic universities. Now, ethnic universities means some universities did not allow black students, Indian students, or colored students to enroll in the universities. Some universities did allow it, but at the time, in the apartheid regime, most of the universities was ethnic universities. Now, as we know, in every sector, we got governing bodies. Now, at the time, the governing body of the university and the educational system of South Africa was called NUSAS, the National University, right, sector of South Africa. Okay, so Steve Biko went and he took black South African students conscientized their minds, and he set up a new council or a new government body called SASU. SASU, South African Student Organization. Now, the mission of Steve Biko with SASU was to liberate the youth, especially the university students of South Africa, to engage into a renewed form of protest against the educational system that the apartheid regime brought about. Because if the educational system gets into action, other systems will follow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, some white university students also supported SASU. Now, Steve Biko did not deny white South African students to be part of SASU, but he said the main focus was that SASU, the majority members of SASU, should consist out of black student or black South African students, because black South African students should have a voice for themselves. They should speak for themselves. All right. In the NUSAS organization, the majority of members and people in high positions were still white students. All right. So can you see what the aim was of Steve Biko with SASU? There were white students present, but he wanted the majority of the members of SASU to be black South African students. Why? In order to liberate themselves and to speak up for themselves, making their needs and wants, all right, publicly what they need. Good. Everybody with me there? Now, at the time, it wasn't only universities that were falling under the apartheid regime in the ethnic university policies. It was also schools. Now, the problem with the schools was that black schools were poor. Black schools got much less support from the government than white schools. So obviously, we can make the logic conclusion that black schools were poor. They did not have finances to support what they need, like study material and other basic school facilities. Obviously, they were overcrowded, all right, because black scholars were not accepted into white schools. And as I say, obviously, there was lacking of facilities, making studying difficult for black scholars at the time, especially when it came to specialized subjects like science, physical science, life science, mathematics, that needed specialized equipment or specialized education. All right. So that was the problem of black schools. And Steve Biko went so far in also addressing that the school problem. Now, the only way for black scholars or learners at the time to obtain an education was called bush colleges and Bantu education. So that means if you were a black learner at the time during the apartheid regime, you had to go to either a bush college, that was a private person setting up classes under a tree, all right? And you only could go as far as grade 7. That was called Bantu education. Now, Bantu education means that the only thing that they teach you is basic skills. So they did not teach you advanced skills. So the scholars or the learners that was part of the Bush colleges and the Bantu education were in essence underskilled. All right, because the only thing that they had was basic knowledge. Everybody with me? That was, we can even say that was almost less than mathematical literacy. Okay, so they taught you how to count from 1 to 10 and maybe do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and whoop, whoop, you got to grade 7. If you were in the Bantu education or the Bush colleges system. Now, that was an injustice put upon the black South African learners. So Steve Biko decided to take action by organizing a peaceful protest. Now, what sparked, and this is important, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to repeat it. What sparked the Soweto uprising? Now, at the time, the South African Education Department came up with a policy, and the policy stated that only the language of Afrikaans should be used in schools as a medium of learning and a medium of teaching. So no other language but Afrikaans were allowed as the language of learning and teaching. And you can think to yourself, if you were a black scholar at the time, having to take science and life science and mathematics and physical science in Afrikaans will pose a great challenge. All right. So that was the main purpose of the Soweto uprising. So Steve Biko, on the 16th of June, 1967, I'm going to say it again, on the 16th of June, 1967, Steve Biko and some other apartheid leaders, together with school children, most of them were school children, organized a peaceful protest to the Orlando Stadium in Soweto, in Vilakazi Street, against the use or the policy of Afrikaans as a language of learning and teaching in schools. All right. Now, the march or the protest was aimed to be peaceful. It was not aimed to be as a violent protest. Now, on the morning of 16 June 1976, about 10:30, 10:30, more than 5,000 students and scholars and black children were crowded in Vilakazi Street, making their way up to the Orlando Stadium. And as the time went by, more and more people joined the protest. Now, the protest was still peaceful at the time, but as the numbers grew, the police got anxious. The white police got anxious. And what did they do? And this is what made the Soweto uprising a very important event in South African history. Now, what did the police do? When there was great masses about 12 o'clock in Vilakazi Street on the Orlando or on their way to the Orlando Stadium in Soweto, the police were so anxious that they started to open fire with live ammunition into the crowd. And remember, that is a crime against humanity. They didn't use rubber bullets. They didn't use anything else. They used live ammunition. And many people were injured. And maybe you will remember these two names. Still today, these two names are icons in the struggle against apartheid. During this massive riot, when the police opened the fire on the crowds in Vilakazi Street of children marching to the Orlando Stadium against the use of Afrikaans, Hector Peterson and Hastings Ndlovu were one of the children that were killed. Hector Peterson and Hastings Ndlovu were one of the two, and they were children. They were two schoolboys. They were not adults. They were one of the two children that were killed during the protest. Now, this riot causes so much uprise in South Africa that it spilled over internationally. It got publicity internationally of the inhumane actions that was going on in South Africa. Now, this event, that's why we celebrate Youth Day on the 16th of June. So if you ever wondered why the 16th of June, that is because of the Soweto uprising and the killing of children during a peaceful protest to improve the quality of their education and to make public the struggle against apartheid. Now, as the world became aware of the situation in South Africa, the international response to apartheid started to come in. All right, everybody with me? So, the last point, the Soweto uprising paved the way to a renewed action. Now, if I'm talking about the renewed action, I'm talking about something new, a new spark, a new energy, a new onslaught, a new motivation. So it paved the way for the renewed action against apartheid. So previously, let's just take it back, before Steve Biko started his Black consciousness ideology, Black South African citizens were feeling hopeless and unempowered. And after Steve Biko set all these things in motion, and with the Soweto uprising, Black South African people of all ages had a renewed action, a renewed positive mindset to set the struggle to end the apartheid regime forward. Now, the last notes in your notes that Miss Ali will hand you, you can read through it yourself, how the Soweto uprising influenced other sectors of South Africa's government at the time that was also struggling under apartheid. It was sectors like the economical sector, the poor living conditions in townships, the trade unions, against cheap labor, unskilled labor, underpaid labor. That was all part of things that was set in motion for a renewed struggle or a renewed onslaught sparked by the Soweto uprising. All right, everybody got it? So the next period, we are going to exercise the source-based exercise on the Black consciousness. If you need to listen to this video, listen again. But what is important to understand? Concept, what is Black consciousness? Who was the founder? What does conscientize mean? What is the difference between NUSAS and SASU? What was the aim of SASU? What was the education situation at the time? The difference between ethnic universities, normal universities, what was Bantu education and Bush colleges, and then the whole event of the Soweto uprising. Why was the Soweto uprising set in place? Meaning what sparked it, ne? The use of Afrikaans in schools. How did the events played out? What was the outcome of the Soweto uprising? What was the outcome of this Soweto uprising? Né? And how it paved the way for a renewed action against apartheid in all sectors of the government at the time, as well as internationally. Okay, got that? I'll see you again.